working on folding the legs into Lotus, this position requires a lot of external rotation in the hips. This series of hip stretches that comes from Yin Yoga, if practiced on a regular basis, will help you to meet this goal. I'm Morgan Auberg. I'm an educator turned yoga instructor, here to break down all things yoga and fitness in a way that makes sense to you. If you have any questions or requests, drop them in the comment section. And don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend who might find it helpful. In Yin Yoga, we engage in passive stretching, which is really different from the dynamic and active stretching that you will normally encounter in my Ashtanga and Vinyasa yoga classes. Passive stretching means that you release the muscles as much as possible and allow the pressure from stretching to take place in the deeper connective tissues, the tendons, ligaments, and fascia. According to research, passive stretching, like the stretches that we do in Yin Yoga, are probably the best way to increase passive range of motion. Passive range of motion just means your range of motion when you're not putting a load on the range of motion. So when you're not forcing yourself into a stretch or into a position with the body. Passive stretching works when you hold the stretch for about 1 minute, 5 times per week per area of the body. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and hit the bell notification button so that you don't miss future yoga classes and deep dives with me. You'll want a yoga mat or other comfortable surface for this class. It will also be helpful to have 2 yoga blocks and 1 or 2 yoga bolsters. If you don't have props like this at home, don't worry. Just look around your house, see what you've got. Maybe a couple of pillows, maybe a few sturdy books like a dictionary that you can stack up and use underneath your hands instead. To get started, bring props towards the top of your mat. I'm using 2 blocks right now, 1 on each side, and then I have 2 bolsters available in case I need them later. The purpose of the props is to be able to bring the ground closer to you, really resting down into the props so that the muscles can completely release. So bring your right foot forward and your left knee back as far as is comfortable. Okay, and then untuck the back toes so the top of the left foot is on the floor. If you have sensitive knees, you might tuck a blanket under the left knee. All right, my hands are on top of each block, but if you can reach the floor with comfort, that's more than welcome. So find what works for you, do that. And I have my phone up here. This is for timing purposes. We'll hold every pose for 3 minutes. So starting in this pose, dragon flying low, 3 minutes from now, we just start to soften here. So beginning to soften, letting the hips sink down, and just noticing what's available in the front of the left leg, that hip flexor, and then in the right hip. You might have compression in the front of the right hip at this point. The right thigh might be coming close to the rib cage. And find your edge. So go to the point where you're feeling a lot, but it's not painful. So we basically find this place where we can sit in some amount of discomfort. But as long as we can breathe deeply and relax our muscles, we know that we're safe and we're okay. If your breath becomes ragged or short, and if your muscles are tensing up and you're unable to release them, it's possible that you've gone too far. So inhale, maybe think let. Exhale, go. Let the hips just sink down. You have about another minute here. Can you release the left glute? Soften all the way down along the left leg, into the left ankle, the sole of the left foot, the left toes. Good, and then noticing the right hip. What do you feel in the right hip? Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Just 30 more seconds. Breathing here, maintaining that sense of ease, also sense of depth. Breathing into your edge, finding calming energy here. You're safe, everything is fine. All right, so that was your minute. From here, we're going to just take the shoulders up over the hips. So I'm bringing my blocks back with me, and my shoulders come over the hips. And then maybe, so you saw my hips went back for a second. I'm gonna try to let them come forward again. And then I'm gonna lighten my hands and just take them to the top of my leg. And I'm really feeling the front of the left leg here. This is dragon flying high. As soon as you take the shoulders over the hips, you have a lot more weight in that left leg. It can be pretty intense. Maybe the hands go from the thigh down to the blocks for a little relief. And then back up to the thigh when you're ready. From here, take your hands to the blocks or the floor and slowly sweep the hips back, straighten the right leg, Ardha Hanumanasana. So half split. Left hip comes forward, right hip comes back slightly. Send the heart forward, spread the collarbones, shoulder blades kind of draw together towards one another behind your back. And then point the right toe and flex. Gentle and slow here, pointing and flexing. Notice what you feel up and down the leg as you do these gentle movements. And then from here, bending back into the right knee, dragon flying high once again. So shoulders stack over hips, hands come to the quads. You only have about 30 more seconds here. Breathing into the intensity in the left side, letting the hips sink down. Inhale, let. Exhale, go, noticing what you feel. All right, so from here, you're gonna move the blocks forward more if you had blocks under your hands. We're gonna take both hands to the inside of the right foot and toe heel the right foot a little bit more towards the right side of the mat. We have options here. You can stay up on your hands, or you can drop down to your forearms if that's available to you. Feel into the right hip now, more than the front of the left leg. So very deep stretch here. The right foot is flat on the floor. And Okay, and you could stay right here. You could, to allow yourself to soften down a little more, you could take a bolster underneath the body and a block underneath the head. So 3 minutes right here. So I've slid the bolster slightly underneath my left thigh so that I don't have to feel quite so much in the front of the left leg. And I'm really focusing my breath in the outer edge of the right hip. My right foot again is flat on the floor. If you're used to coming onto the knife edge of that right foot, and taking the knee farther out to the side, you're welcome to do that. It is interesting to try new movement patterns though. So I do invite you to experiment if you're up for that. And breathe into the places where you feel something. So what do you notice in your body? Where is there muscle tension? And can you release that tension in order to allow the stretch to get into the connective tissues? We want to put appropriate stress on the connective tissues to help lengthen them. There's research that shows that when you put this kind of stress on your connective tissue, your body lays down more collagen in those areas that allows for better performance. You get more gliding of the tissues and less friction and less inflammation. Soften your jaw if you're finding that it's clenching. Sometimes experiencing our hips can somehow find the tension all the way down into our jaw. We have about 1 more minute. Breathing into the outer edge of the right hip. But at the same time, relaxing the shoulders, the neck, the throat. Release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Allow the muscles to just melt right off the bones. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Just a few more breaths here. All right, so slowly take the hands underneath the shoulders if you weren't already up there. And then move the props out of your way for a moment. And we're going to take the hips back for a second and then toe heel the right foot to the left side of the mat. And for Lotus specifically, when you take your pigeon pose, or sleeping swan as they call it in Yin Yoga, the right foot goes close to the left hip. So we're not trying to get it parallel to the top of the mat, because Lotus, your feet go into the hip creases. We're going to replicate that same position, all right? So it's like the top of the foot and the top of the shin is down on the mat. The knee is still sort of out to the side. It's not like in front of us. And then we're going to start to walk our hands down, and everyone has a different level of mobility, right? So if you find, for example, that your right glute is off the mat, you're going to put a pillow or a blanket underneath it to support it, okay, so that your hips are level. If you can just relax your chest all the way down onto the floor, do that. And if that's not relaxing to you, find a bolster underneath the chest. or a stack of bolsters, or a bolster and a block under the forehead. So experiment with your prop situation. Find what feels good, and that's what you're gonna do. All right, so 3 minutes here, starting now. Melting the chest down into whatever position it was that you're taking. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. As you soften into this pose and really find your edge. So we find our edge. It's this point where we're a little bit uncomfortable because the stretch is deep and the stretch is intense. But we're not in pain, right? There's no sharpshooting pain. There's no burning sensations. There's certainly no tingling or numbness. And if you experience any of those things, I encourage you to come out of the pose. Go a little bit less. We're not here to experience pain. And send your breath, your energy into the right hip. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Encouraging those muscles to just release, release, release. We're halfway done. Can you visualize spaciousness as you inhale throughout the whole body? And then as you exhale, imagine that you're melting down into the earth. Inhale, spaciousness and length. Maybe you grow an inch taller. Exhale, allow your body to sink down into the mat, relaxing more and more of your muscles. Inhale, visualizing that spaciousness. Maybe there's more space between each vertebrae. Exhale, soften, release, sink down. Once again, soften your jaw and release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. If the hands are clenching, let the fingers soften, let the toes soften. One more breath here. Deep inhale through the nose. Long, slow exhale back out through the nose. Okay. Slowly coming up, taking the hands underneath the shoulders. Now you're going to tuck the left toes, lift the left knee up, and then take the right foot back. Maybe find a downward facing dog if that feels good. Lifting the hips, you can pedal out one foot and then the other. Kind of shifting the hips from side to side. If down dog isn't your cup of tea right now, simply drop to the knees, find a child's pose. The rib cage and the thighs connect. Interesting sensations in the body, just noticing what you feel. And then on your next inhale, come to your tabletop, hands and knees. Then bring the left foot forward. Gotta get organized. Okay. So, setting up your blocks on either side of the foot. We'll start the timer. Dragon flying low. We have the hands on 2 blocks. And it's a nice place to start. We're going to really get into the left hip and the front of the right leg, the right hip flexor. And so
you might be feeling a lot from before in the left leg, the front of the left leg. And what always strikes me about this second side is how gentle dragon flying low can be in the beginning. So it feels pretty intense, but compared to those other postures that we did afterwards, it doesn't seem like so much, does it? So maybe as you inhale, the spine lengthens out. As you exhale, can you release the right glute? Then release the muscles all the way down the right leg, all the way to the sole of the foot, completely loose, relaxed. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. What do you feel? And where do you feel it? Everything that you feel here is valid, and we don't need to change anything. If you experience sharp shooting pain, tingling, or numbness, then we need to come out of the pose. But other than that, we find our edge, and we sit at our edge, and we breathe. And we do so calmly. Do you feel the front of the left leg? The rib cage and the thigh might be meeting. And if it's not there yet, just work there slowly over time. This connection between the thigh and the rib cage, this is helpful when you're in a vinyasa yoga class and you're trying to step the foot forward between the hands from downward facing dog. Take another breath. Inhale, long, slow, deep through the nose. Exhale, release, relax, soften. All right, so from here, moving to dragon flying high, plus our Ardha Hanumanasana. So we'll take the blocks with us if you're a block user, and you can draw the hips back slightly at first. And then maybe sink down into the hips. So my shoulders are stacking over the hips here. And that puts a lot of weight in the hips. It can be intense, but it's really good. So maybe you float the hands onto the thigh. Isn't that wild? See if you can breathe here. It's hard to release your muscles completely. You are going to have to use some muscles to support you unless you're a complete gummy bear. Because a lot of us have limited ranges of motion. For example, I feel a big stretch in the front of my right leg, and if I were to completely relax down, I just don't think I could. That's my edge, right? I can't go any farther. That's okay. I'm just going to sit here and breathe and accept what is. This is what I've got, right? Inhale, let. Exhale, go. One more inhale. And then as you exhale, the hands can come to the blocks or the floor. Start to straighten out the left leg and take both hips back. So here's Ardha Hanumanasana, which means half split. We're going to lengthen the spine, take the sternum towards the front of the mat, spread the collarbones and squeeze the shoulder blades together. So we're not rounding the upper back. And then point the toe and flex. Point, flex. Little movement here. Notice what you feel in the ankle and the top of the foot. And then maybe up and down the leg and maybe not, right? Sometimes you'll feel a lot, sometimes a little. All right, pausing for another breath. And slowly bending into that left knee. Take the hips over, take the shoulders, over the hips. Dragon flying high. You can keep the hands on the blocks if that's helpful. Maybe with that you can relax your muscles in your legs a little more easily, or you can take the hands to the knee. Just one more breath here. Beautiful. Remove the props off to the side, unless you need them under your hands. Toe heel your left foot more to the left. It can be at 45 degrees. And then either stay up on your hands, up on the blocks. The hips are as far forward or as far back as needed, right? You'll know what's best for you. Option also to drop to the forearms here. 3 more minutes, starting now. And again, it's common in many classes, including ones that I teach, to come onto the knife edge of that foot, and it changes the stretch in the left outer hip. It is interesting and different to keep the foot flat on the floor. And if you do so for a full 3 minutes, you might have an experience that you haven't had before. So you could consider trying that, but it's not required, of course. Find what feels good for your body. Try that. But now we're getting really into this outer edge of the left hip. So breathing here. There's always the option to take a prop underneath you too. I think I did that on the other side. Somehow I'm more comfortable, I'm not sure. Yeah, this is better. So maybe take a bolster under that right leg, just so that you can relax the muscles a little more easily. A block under the forehead could also help you down-regulate the nervous system. For some reason, when you put the head into contact with something, the earth or a block like this, it helps you feel calm. I'm sure there's research about that we could check out. And then from here, inhale, let. Exhale, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Really breathing into the outer edge of the left hip. And then noticing what you feel. You might feel the outer edge of the left hip, but you might feel the left hamstring, quad, anywhere along the leg. You could feel the low back. Of course, you could feel the right hip flexor. And every experience here is valid. So just see if you can soften into the experience that you're having. Two more deep breaths. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. From here, you can raise the head up and start to take the hands underneath the shoulders if they were down. We'll remove the props out of the way just until we come into our pigeon pose, or in yin, as we call it, sleeping swan. So take the hips back first, slightly, toe heel the left foot to the right side of the mat, and then the left knee is on the left side of the mat. We bring the hips forward, and then the top of the left foot is down, and the left foot and the right hip are close to one another. If your hip is up, if it can't make it all the way down onto the ground, take a block or a blanket or a bolster and slip it underneath so that you have support, so that your hip is not hanging in midair. And then come down onto your forearms, onto a bolster, or all the way down onto the floor. You can always make a pile of blocks for your forehead. But we rest here. And try to really let go. So just 3 more minutes experiencing this stretch. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Trying to soften all of the muscles in that left leg, left hip, lower back on the left side. But then not neglecting the rest of the body. Sometimes we clench out of a protectiveness. So can you make sure that your tongue is releasing off of the roof of the mouth? The jaw is loose. There's separation between the lower and upper teeth. Maybe even some space between the lips. The face is soft, the cheeks, the forehead, the right temple, left temple. Even softening the crown of the head. The shoulder blades can just glide down the back towards the hips ever so slightly. On your next exhale, can you grow heavier, sink down deeper into the earth? Inhale, let. Exhale, go. You have 1 more minute here. Notice what you feel. All experiences are completely valid. All sensations are okay. If there is sharp and shooting pain or tingling and numbness, do come out of the pose. Take a little break. We come to our edge in Yin Yoga. We just approach the edge. And we sit in our discomfort at the edge, and we practice, we cultivate a sense of contentment here. In Sanskrit, it's santosha. So this contentment, being okay with what is. And there you go, that was 3 minutes. So slowly raising the torso up. Taking the hands underneath the shoulders, tucking the right toes back, and lifting up the hips into downward facing dog. You can pedal out the feet. Shift the hips from side to side. Find what feels good here.
Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to see progress in your Lotus, I recommend repeating this class 3 times per week. I also have a 45-minute core flow vinyasa that I know that you will love. It's a very different movement modality, but it really is fantastic for the deep core, the hip flexors, and a lot of active and dynamic stretching. This class is completely free, and I've linked to it in the description below. Thank you again so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you soon.